It was hyped up as the biggest college basketball game of the century, and it did not disappoint one bit. The game went down to the very last second, and it ended in the craziest, most controversial way imaginable. The two best players in women's college basketball went head to head in the Final Four, and it was must-see TV. Caitlin had just had one of the best performances of her career, getting her revenge on Angel Reese and LSU. Standing in her way from returning to the championship game was Paige Bueckers, who coming into this game had a chip on her shoulder, to remind everyone that before she got injured, she was the best player in college basketball. She was the one that won National Player of the Year as a freshman, not Caitlin Clark. Everybody talks about the Angel Reese rivalry, but this rivalry dates back even further. The two stars met in the Sweet 16 a few years ago. Caitlin had 21 points, Bueckers had 18, 9 and 8. The Huskies blew out the Hawkeyes, and best believe Caitlin Clark has been waiting a long time for the rematch. This was a legacy defining game for not just both players, but for the programs too. UCONN haven't won a championship since 2016, despite 6 Final Four appearances in that time period. Iowa have never won a national championship, not in the women's or the men's. They've had the best players in the country, they didn't win with Garza, and if they don't win with Caitlin now, they probably never will. We need to just talk about this game. On the first offensive possession, Clark is aggressive right away. She has to work really hard off the ball just to make herself available. She does get the ball, and on this play, wastes no time and quickly drives to the basket and finishes before the help defense can react. Since Clark got her first points, you know Paige had to answer back. She starts off on the left wing, the big Edward sets a good screen to free her up, she gets to the mid-range and knocks down her first shot. I would love to tell you this was the beginning of a back and forth, but that didn't happen, and if you're thinking Caitlin Clark was going to drop an easy 40 bomb like she did against LSU, you're mistaken. This was a defensive masterclass from UConn. They had Caitlin Clark locked up in jail. She was getting shadowed 94 feet. Sometimes she would go several possessions without touching the ball, and whenever she did get it, it was like a hot potato. She'd either quickly chuck up a free as soon as she got it, or she'd run downhill and get to the basket. Whatever she was trying to do wasn't working, and Iowa in that first quarter looked like they were going to get destroyed. Every single time on offense, they looked like they were going to turn over the ball. In the first quarter, they had 10 turnovers. UConn had a very simple game plan: suppress Caitlin Clark, make somebody else beat you, deny her the ball at all costs. And you could see she was getting visibly frustrated and started making some stupid decisions. Right here, Clark gives up a silly touch foul, gifting UConn an extra point, when she could have just conceded the open layup. Meanwhile, the Huskies were playing great team basketball. Everyone was getting involved, everyone was getting their touches. On this play, you see Paige looking like an on-court coach. Look at her instructing her teammates to find the shooter in the corner, who ends up knocking it down from her hotspot. Caitlin was having no luck scoring the ball, she could barely get a shot off, but she did call a good inbound play that led to an easy basket. On this play, look at her trying to shake off the defender. Against LSU's drop coverage, this would be a free right here, but Paige Bueckers steps up and is right there to double on the switch. Luckily, Clark is good enough in this situation to find her teammate for an open free. The Huskies' defense really had her rattled. Caitlin was out of ideas. She was rushing, she was wasteful, careless, and forcing things that weren't there. She went 0 for 3 on 3-pointers in the first quarter. They weren't even good looks, she just threw it up there whenever she got a half look at the hoop. In fairness, a shot attempt, no matter how bad a shot it is better than getting a turnover, so I don't actually blame her. Caitlin finished the first quarter with 2 points on 1 of 5 shooting, the lowest point she'd ever scored in a quarter. How Iowa only trailed by 5 at the end of the first, I still don't know. But if you thought the first quarter was bad, the second was even worse. This time on offense, check out Bueckers keeping everyone right. She moves off the ball, sets 2 off-ball screens, comes around, gets the ball in the lane, sells the defense with her eyes, and finds Edwards with a no-look bounce pass in the lane for an easy basket. Perhaps the only thing Clark was consistent with all game was finding the hot hand. Hannah Stuckey was Iowa's most reliable player all game. She was the only one that was consistently and officially getting points on the board, and Clark made sure to get her the ball as much as possible. Right here she throws a get ahead pass in transition, which leads to another assist. Offensively, Clark continued to struggle. On this play she goes straight to the left side for a signature sidestep 3, but Paige is willing to help. This miss made her 0 for 4 to start the game from deep. It was here when things looked like they were falling apart. Clark tries to find Stuckey in the post again. It's another bad pass. Edwards gets the steal and scores the other way. The next play again, Clark's rushing, tries to find Marshall in transition for an assist and turns it over again. UConn come down the other way. Bueckers is open. Clark tries to contest. It's too late. She knocks down the 3 to give her team a commanding 12-point lead. It was hard to believe what was happening. The same Iowa team that averaged 90 points per game, the most in women's college basketball in a decade, were halfway through the second quarter with just 16 points. Caitlin Clark hadn't scored since the first possession of the game. She finally got some more points on the board. As you can see here, she just raced to the hoop and hoped. This time, UConn's help defense was slow to react and she got the easiest shot she'd had all game. The only option for Clark was to keep attacking. On this play, she sells the defense with a stop on the drive and then quickly accelerates into the lane for a layup with the right hand. One thing Clark did very well towards the end of the second quarter was attack players in foul trouble. After they started raking up fouls, the defensive intensity stopped, and all of a sudden they weren't being so physical with Caitlin, and that allowed her to get going. Check out this beautiful pass over the defense from Clark to cut it to a 4-point game. The Hawkeyes had some momentum and closed the half strong. Clark on the next play has a chance to make it a single possession game. She waits till the end of the shot clock, puts up another 3 and misses. She went into halftime 0 for 6 from 3-point range. It was the first time ever she hadn't made a 3 at halftime. Clark had just 6 points on 3 of 11 shooting from the field. The final possession of the half, standard Bueckers-Edwards pick and roll. Stuckey has to stay with the rolling Edwards, which allows Bueckers to step through, get to the hoop. At halftime, things weren't looking good for the Hawkeyes. They had 12 turnovers and 5 assists. But somehow, they were still in the ball game. They were only down 6. A big reason for this is because they were able to hang in there defensively. UConn's half-court offense was actually really poor. The majority of their points in the first half came from turning defense into offense with steals. The Huskies missed an opportunity to put the game to bed early on. If somebody had told them before the game that Caitlin Clark would only have 6 points at halftime and had made 0 3-pointers, you'd be hoping for more than a 6-point lead. The second half started and the best case scenario happened for Iowa. They came out and hit a huge 3 to make it a 1-possession game. The start of the third quarter was all about Paige Bueckers. Some good footwork here in the corner to wrong foot Marshall, and then she cuts backdoor and finishes with the reverse layup. Finally, the moment came and Caitlin Clark answered back. It was the first time all game we'd seen any offensive action like this. A double screen to get her a good look on her favoured left side. Clark knocked it down, and shortly after Iowa tied the game. Paige Bueckers came down and answered right back. Another pick and roll with Edwards. Marshall stupidly went under the screen and Paige punished her with a devastating free ball. UConn continued to get easy shots. Right here is some old school triangle offense, and Bueckers uses her body well to get in front of Marshall, receives the lob pass into the paint and finishes like a centre. She's showing emotion on this play and talking some smack. Rightfully so. Paige had 7 points in the third. It was time for Caitlin to answer back, and after several possessions without touching the ball, it looked like she wasn't going to get it on this play either, until she found a tiny bit of space, threw up a free ball with zero hesitation, made the shot, was fouled on the play and had a chance at one more. This was the turning point for Iowa. Clark had finally found her range and the game was tied. Hannah Stuckey continued to be the Hawkeyes' most consistent player. Yet again, Clark pushing the pace, finds her with a killer pass under the basket, another assist, another 2 points. I think a big difference in the third quarter was Clark found out how to impact the game without the ball. She also took way better care of the ball, the whole team did. They went from 10 turnovers in the first half to 0 in the third quarter. But going into the fourth, the score was still tied at 51 each. A place in the championship game awaited them. The game was there for the taking and it was going to come down to whoever wanted it most. And nobody wanted it more than Caitlin Clark. She grabs a rebound defensively after Bueckers misses and showed her how it's done. She stops on the drive, goes behind the back and hits a step back 3. Then again on this play, she puts the moves on Arnold, dances on the perimeter, creates some separation with a bit of physicality and rises up for a jumper at the top of the key and knocks it down. Then again, this time on the defensive end, Clark anticipates the entry pass into the post, gets the steal, comes down the floor, bounce pass into Hannah Stuckey for a layup. Hawkeyes are now up 5. Caitlin Clark's playing well, the role players are stepping up, and we all thought this shot right here from Gabby Marshall was the dagger. It was a massive shot that put Iowa up 10 points with 5 minutes to go. But this game was far from over. UConn got a confidence boost when the refs decided her foot was on the line to take a point off that made it a single-digit game. And this is the part of the game where Paige Bueckers stepped up to the plate. With just over 4 minutes to go in the fourth, the Huskies trap Clark with a double team, they force her into a turnover and Paige Bueckers hits a transition 3 to cut the lead to 4 points with 4 minutes to go in the game. Paige kept making smart plays down the stretch. With around 2 minutes to go, the Huskies needed a basket. On this play she runs the go-to pick and roll with Edwards. Looks like she's going to pull up in the mid-range. Stuckey steps out, Edwards rolls and she dimes it off to her for a layup. At this point Caitlin Clark has gone cold. She hasn't scored in ages. And then one of the biggest moments of the game. Down only 4 points with just over a minute to go, Paige Bueckers, the hot hand, finds herself open in the corner for 3, a chance to make it a 1-point game, and she misses. A lot of fans thought that was it, that was the moment for UConn. But it wasn't over, because they got that 3 right back. The Hawkeyes stupidly turned the ball over again. Caitlin did well to get back in transition and stop Paige from getting a quick fast break layup. But moments later, she'd wish she'd given up the 2, because Mule was trailing wide open at the top of the perimeter and made a 3 to make it a 1-point game with 39 seconds remaining. The way the shot clock was lined up was that UConn were going to get the last shot. All they had to do was stop Caitlin Clark. She tried to drain as much clock as she possibly could, didn't get a look that she liked, gave the ball up, and UConn's defense came through again, forcing another turnover. They instantly call a timeout. 10 seconds remain. They're 1 point down. Any basket will take them to the championship game. And then the craziest moment of the craziest game happened. UConn inbound the ball. They try an unexpected handoff with Mule to turn a corner and get a layup. Iowa defends well. Paige improvises, comes back around to get open, looking for the ball. She gets it. She's about to put up a shot to win the game, and the referees call an offensive foul on Edwards. They called an illegal screen with just seconds left in the game. Now I know a lot of people are mad about this play. Even LeBron James tweeted that it was a bad call. I'm sorry LeBron, I understand you've been in the NBA for a long time, and we all know for entertainment value NBA officials turn a blind eye to things like this at this stage of the game. But surely we can all agree that objectively speaking, this is an illegal screen. Edwards has got 1 foot on the perimeter, 1 at the elbow, she leans in, extends her elbows, it's an offensive foul. Now usually you would get away with it. You can argue whether or not they'd have called it on the other side of the ball if Caitlin Clark was about to put up a shot for the win in the Final Four. You can theorise all you want about why it may be in the NCAA's best interests to feature Caitlin Clark in the final game. Regardless of whatever conspiracy theories you can come up with, that's an illegal screen, and I think the refs made the right call. But yet again, the game was not over. Caitlin Clark got fouled, went to the free throw line where she's an 86% shooter. She made the first, missed the second, which meant UConn could take a timeout, advance the ball, and win the game with a free at the buzzer. But no, they didn't box out. They must have expected Caitlin to make it. She choked, and Katie Martin came up with a huge offensive rebound. And that was devastating. There's a little over a second left in the game now, and when inbounding the ball, Caitlin Clark geniusly threw the ball off of Paige's back to kill a little bit more time. The final buzzer went, and Iowa somehow, someway, the hard way, despite Caitlin's struggles in the first half, despite a defensive masterclass from UConn, they stole the victory and returned to the championship game, meaning Caitlin Clark will have her ultimate game. A fairy tale ending to her incredible collegiate career awaits her. She can put herself in the GOAT debate by winning a national championship, and she'll have a rematch with South Carolina, the undefeated juggernaut who she beat last year on this same stage. Caitlin Clark didn't have her best ever game against UConn, but she finished the job and did what needed to be done. She still had 21 points, 9 rebounds and 7 assists. She scored 16 of those points in the second half. She impacted the game in a lot of ways. She adjusted very well in the second half and was able to make herself valuable even when the opposing team's entire game plan was to slow her down. Paige Bueckers had a good game too, 17 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds. She'll have another chance at winning a title next year, and then she'll probably be the #1 pick in next year's draft too. But in the matchup between the best two guards in college basketball, Caitlin Clark had more points, more assists, more rebounds, and she's the one who's playing in the final on Sunday. So I guess we can put that debate to bed for now. Caitlin Clark is the better point guard, and that will remain the case until Paige Bueckers gets the opportunity to prove otherwise when they inevitably meet again many years from now in the WNBA. I cannot wait for the championship game. We'll be covering it right here on the channel. If you want to see more breakdown videos like this, subscribe to the channel and let me know if you want to see me cover some of these players when they go to the WNBA next season. But that's all I've got to say. Let me waste no more of your time. SteakyM signing out, and peace.